Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What's that?
This is the first of 3 budget meetings that the school committee will be holding, where we'll be meeting with the principals of each school to get our input and questions answered, as well as with the administration. The meeting tonight is being taped by Spencer Cable Access. It may also be taped by Spencer New Leader and Worcester Telegram Gazette. What I would like to do is, the first school on the agenda is David Prouty. I would suggest to the committee, I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to be heard and take as much time as they want to ask questions of the principal or the superintendent or the business manager. And then if you have items that you would like to have a vote on, either for moving money around in a line item account or suggestions that you want to make as to how the funds should be used differently, I would ask that you just write them down and hold them until we go through all the schools, and then perhaps on Wednesday, after we finish with the district and special ed, then we could entertain all the motions, and we'll have a better idea as a whole what we're looking at with the budget, as opposed to making motions and taking votes tonight to make any changes. So that will be the procedure that we will follow. And Mr. Superintendent, do you have anything before we get started?
No, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, then we'll start with Mr. O'Brien in the high school. Thank you, Bob, for coming, and
Well, thank you. I appreciate leading off. And I'd like to thank Julie Supinat and Dr. Malvey for their help with the budget.
okay. We'll take a seat. He's going to do it.
We are having some problems with the projector light bulbs, so we might have to dim the lights.
Tomorrow, the light bulb's going in the projector. Of all the days to die.
Aaron, could you dim the lights some more, please? We'll do a little mood lighting.
Bob?
Yeah.
It's either all the way up like this, or they're all the way up. So what would you like me to do?
I can't hear you. What's that?
It's either they're all the way down, or they're like this.
Let me get to the first page. Julie, could you give me a hand with? Mouses.
I don't think it's,
Oh, there we go. Can I have that clear?
actually, I can, you want me to steer it? I can click it, or?
I press to advance. Just this one. It looks like this line is cut off a little bit. But the changes, I'll read it from my screen. I believe you have it in front of you, too. From FY14 to FY15, there's an increase of 38,578. For supplies, an increase of 25,999. Custodial supplies and maintenance is increased to 4,097, for a total increase of 43,179. Why don't we try the lights off more?
Yeah, I can try to.
It's gonna be dark.
Totally off if we do it that way. So.
So going across, we have the FY14 budget and the FY15, that remains the same. Clerical is down. We did remove a clerical position this year. Teachers, that's just contractual language. Librarian stays. The nurse stays. Custodians, it reads three and a half. We have a full-time custodian at the high school and 3 part-timers. Also assigned to David Prouty is the all-around outdoor person, which is Roger Barnes Jr. So that will stay the same. Department heads, those do increase. AV stipend stays the same. Extracurricular stipends decrease of 384. Substitute stays at 40,000. Paraprofessional substitute, that line item of 4,000, that is for the after-school detention coordinator. Julie and I straightened that out today. A nurse substitute had to be increased by 1,100 for a total difference of 38,578. Where it was the teachers for 29 in increases due to loss of school choice, we're down to 28.5 teachers at the high school. In the last 5 years, about a half dozen or so have left Prouty due to budget cuts. Projected enrollments for next year, 120 for grade 9, 143 for grade 10, 102 and 104 for a total projection of 469. These are your average class sizes. Some are larger due to the AP courses. Those AP courses tend to be a little bit smaller, but that gives you a general sense of what's going on in that building. We have the changes here on our FY14 to FY15. A $1,600 change in supplies, $610 for postage, $390 for memberships and dues. That has to be increased. Graduation expense stays the same. We are requesting $1,500 for textbooks. Copy equipment, that has increased to $288 since we don't use workbooks. Teacher supplies to $8,000, math specific supplies $250, music $4,000, physical education $1,000, science supplies $6,500, social studies $250, and business supplies $1,000. And these are down to bare bones minimum for what we can get. There is a change here for instructional software, an increase of $3,427. That brings us instructional software up to $9,900. And we do need to increase health supplies for a total of $82,945, an increase by $2,599. For athletics, you see an increase in coaches' stipends. That's due to coaches moving up their step scale. Everything else stays relatively the same. The officials, we have to pay them a set price determined by the MIAA, the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association. They're the ones that set the rates for officials. Student accident insurance, that has increased by $332. The big hit with athletics is the transportation, 48450. And that has a total increase of $4,097. Custodial supplies, we went down to $21,000 for a change of $1101. Rubbish removal has decreased. Julie found a cheaper price. Pest control stayed the same. Heating, we increased for the projected price of oil, an increase of $4,048. For a total of $320,895, which is $2,095 less than last year. We look at every dollar, where every dollar is going. Requests, we do need additional teachers at the high school, but we understand that we're under tight financial strains. It's something we will have to address going down the road as we adopt the Mass Core curriculum. But what we're looking at for a request is $6,000 in summer clerical time. We did not have the secretaries work over this summer. We found that out last year at the last school day. It's vital that we have someone in the office every day for the public, for when they come in. When Mr. Bayshant and myself are there, a lot of our time is spent answering the phone, opening the doors, and doing tasks which will better serve the secretarial staff, will better serve those needs, and that will enable us to concentrate on our jobs. Virtual high school, this has increased because if we subscribe to the service instead of paying a flat fee, this price is a better price for our students. And we can offer more offerings to our students if we join, as opposed to spending it per student. $1,000 in the library in books and supplies we're requesting. Athletic expenses, these are items that for a long time we have not paid attention to. And this breaks down to a total of $1,300 approximately for every team. So if you look at 24 varsity, 18 varsity and 6 sub-varsity for a total of 24 teams, if you realize that's for 24 teams, that price becomes a little more palatable for new uniforms, conditioning, getting the helmets back up to order. That's that price right there. We did get an estimate on the doors. It's about $30,000. We have done some doors repairing. Repaired the doors in the past 2 or 3 years. There's certain doors at the school that cannot close or shut properly without really manhandling them. And as a safety issue, we should replace those doors. And to bring to your attention, the roof needs some help. It's been put off in the past, thinking that the new school or the building committee would be taking care of that. But a rough estimate of $75,000, just bringing to your attention as a committee that down the road at some point we'd have to address it. That is the high school budget. If you want to stay there, I'd be willing to take any questions, and I can jump back to any screen that you would like.
And we'll go back to the table.
Okay.
Okay, at this point, we've heard the presentation from Mr. O'Brien. I'd like to open it up to the board and give each member an opportunity to ask any questions they may have. Anybody want to be recognized? Josh?
Well, let's go to supplies. I guess just with the supplies, I have a whole list here.
Go ahead.
but Just starting with the supplies, you have in your requests, what is it, $1,000 for library supplies? Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's a request.
That's a request, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's library supplies and books.
That's Knox Trail.
Oh, gee, hang on, I'm on the wrong page.
Just passed it.
No, it's right here, isn't it? There we go. All right, library, so that's library supplies and books, but then you went down on language textbooks, you went down, you stayed the same on teacher supplies, went down on math supplies, went down on physical education, went down on social studies. Is that, I mean, is that okay? Did we have extra last year that we
No.
could do that? No.
No, not at all.
So this is just
This is
little places.
getting to a
on little-
number as fiscally responsible as we can.
Okay. Building maintenance, you went down $2,500. How exactly did you go down such a large amount in building maintenance? Do you have anything in your notes?
Do you want me to speak?
The rubbish removal was a big chunk at almost 4,000.
Well, that's up top. I'm looking down at the bottom of the list, right above HVAC maintenance, which went up 600. Building maintenance went down 2,500.
Can I just speak to it then?
Sure.
I took when I went through each group, and it was the same for each school. So at this point, the high school is a little bit lower. Building maintenance, really, you don't know exactly how it's going to come in until the year starts. So
Right.
basically, every school just ended up with the same.
Well, I'm concerned when I see something like that because I know maintenance isn't exactly
Yeah.
one of our highest priorities. So to see a line item go down like that, it's a little scary. That's kind of like keeping your library supplies at zero for a couple of years, or your library books at zero. And then going on to your requests, and I guess this is a question for the superintendent, your new door estimate and your roof patch estimate, does that even belong here, or should that be capital improvement? Because doors and roofs are more capital improvements than anything else.
Right. The expectation would be an item, both those items, that if they were well received by the committee, I would recommend that they be put over onto a capital item list as opposed to the operating budget. But I asked the principals to bring it forward just so that we get it on the table.
Okay. And I guess the only other thing that stands out is this $19,000 for athletic expenses. You explained what they were for, and I appreciate that, but I look back in this proposed level services budget, and I see athletic repairs and conditioning going down. I see new equipment going down. So I see these two things moving in drastically different directions here, and it's just another area for concern. I would hope, I know you asked that we're going to keep all of our motions to Wednesday, but I would hope that we would consider seriously looking at some of these requests. I mean, $1,000 for books and supplies, when we've been at nothing for a couple of years, that's scary. Athletic equipment, people don't think much about athletic stuff, but on one hand, you're going down, on one hand, you're going up drastically. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere in there, and I'm sure athletic equipment doesn't get any newer as it's used. So I just wanted to bring up those things that really stood out to me, because there's some areas for serious concern here in this level services budget.
And I appreciate some of those concerns, Josh, and what I would like you to do is, if you check those off and be prepared with any motions you want to make on them
Okay.
on Wednesday. The idea was tonight, give everybody an opportunity to discuss it rather than just having motions and votes and without people.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you all set, Josh? You have any more?
Yeah, unless anybody wants to talk about it, but.
Did you want to respond to any of that?
Yes,
Mr. O'Brien?
through the chair to Mr. Cody. One of the reasons why we break this down into that high school request page instead of having it on this is that it is a large increase. We want to make sure the committee is fully aware of what we're requesting the community's money be spent. So we're just making sure you have that information in front of you, as opposed to thinking it's hidden in a line item in the budget.
Yep.
To Josh's point, Mr. O'Brien, specifically, what would that $19,000 of athletics expense be spent on?
It is broken down to approximately $1,300 per sport,
Okay?
and with our 24 sports, that brings us up to the $19,000.
But what is that 1,300 going to go to?
That would go to conditioning, the equipment, the helmets and shoulder pads have to be recertified each year, ordering new uniforms and equipment for things that get lost. We're going all the way down to, say, tennis balls, baseballs, the equipment, uniform needs. We know that, sometimes it's the cross-country team that doesn't get a lot of attention, and a couple of years will go by, and they're kind of in tatters at this point.
Okay.
So it's something that we're just reinstating what was there that we have cut in the past few years
Right.
to make
But,
up.
but there is another line item account for athletic repair and reconditioning. So this is, would be in addition to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there's no uniforms or other things being purchased out of these other line
No.
accounts? Okay. I just wanted to clarify
We
that.
recondition, like I said, the helmets, but we've neglected it for a while, and it needs some attention.
Okay. All right, Mr. Cody is all set. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. O'Brien?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nordquist?
Yeah, just go back to athletic on page 19 here. It says new equipment. You just said to Mr. Hayes that you was going to fix equipment. Well, if you got $5,000 in new equipment, why wouldn't you use that to repair the equipment?
Well, in addition to that, we need that extra money, that $1,300 per team, to get it up to where it needs to be.
And then up top, Assistant Athletic Director, $4,700. It's my understanding that we have students that help the athletic director, setting up the fields and this and that. Do we really need an Assistant Athletic Director for $4,700? What does he do?
Yes, we do,
besides-
Mr. Nordquist. I reviewed the Assistant Athletic Director job description, and most of his responsibility deals with the day-to-day financial runnings of the games to make sure everything gets paid, that the workers are in place. He assists the athletic director. Out of the 11 schools that we work with, more than half have an assistant athletic director, and some of those schools have a full-time athletic director. We have a part-time athletic director, and for everything to get done, he does need assistance.
So if that's the case, what does the athletic director do if he's not writing up schedules and?
Well, that's what he does, is he does the scheduling, overseeing the teams. Having that job personally, it is a tremendous amount of responsibility dealing with all these teams. The scheduling, the mailing, paying the officials. So a lot of work goes into it.
Yeah, but my question is, isn't that the job of the full-time, at the part-time, stipend for $84.35?
This has been a long-standing practice in many schools. You have an assistant to the athletic director. The athletic director receives one period to take care of his athletic director duties, and the rest is a stipend. I'd love to see a full-time athletic director, and then we could lose the assistant athletic director. I'd love to go in that direction, but right now, we can't afford that.
And then my other question, what Mr. Cody says is on page 20, on the doors in the roof, and that might be to the superintendent. If you go for capital, I would like to see bids, not estimates. It doesn't tell you what it is. It doesn't tell you how big, how small, or how many doors or whatever. So if we do go to capital, Mr. Superintendent, I'd like to see bids, please.
We would, we're governed by the law, Kurt, to do it at this dollar threshold.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a second, Mr.
Yep,
Chairman.
take your time.
under page 18, under library, we don't have any money for library books? We get zero?
That is correct. We're requesting $1,000 for library books and supplies.
I think, guess that's it for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to be recognized? Mr. Cloutier?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. O'Brien, on the clerical, for the cut of $10,005, can you tell me what position was taken out?
Yes, that was the guidance secretary.
Okay.
Her position has been eliminated.
It was actually for the bookkeeper.
I'm sorry?
That was actually for the bookkeeper. The guidance secretary was taken out in last year's budget.
Okay, so that would be for Mrs. Torrey's position.
So it was the bookkeeper that was removed?
Okay. Can you tell me on the department head, you have an increase of 2373. Did we add a department, or what's the increase for? Did we add another department head?
No, we did not. I believe that increase is due to changes in the years of experience. They get bumped up a level, up to 3 years, so first, second, and third year, I believe.
Okay. Where are those schedules found? Are those contract schedules?
That's part of the contract, yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
But I can get you further information.
Okay. Respect to class sizes and projected enrollment, you have 469 students here. Either can you answer or can the administration answer what the projected enrollment was last year at the beginning of the year?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look and
It
see
was
what we have.
Very close to here, but I don't know the exact number.
Okay. I mean, currently, we're at 465 at the high school. And I'm guess my question has to do with this projected enrollment. Is this considering students opting out for school choice?
We did take into consideration students leaving for Bay Path coming up from the 8th grade, which is between 10 and 20% normally go to Bay Path. So we did take that into consideration.
They're not school choice.
Okay. I have a couple of questions that I intend to ask all the principals of the different schools as it pertains to the budget. We just went through a DSAC report, and it was presented to us a few weeks back. And my question would be, what part of the budget that you're presenting to us tonight addresses any of those items inside of that DSAC report?
I wish I could say that because of that DSAC report, we're going to need 4 new teachers. That's true. I knew that budget would fail. I could not say, yes, we need an extra $500,000 at the high school. We can get by next year with the staff, but I think it would be foolish at this point to be requesting that. At this point, we should be looking at the 16 budget to fund new staff going down the road. We're still getting out of this financial storm that we were in. I didn't think it was prudent at this time to do with that.
Okay, thank you. If you had to identify, and this is strictly your opinion, the 3 top priorities, and if you could put them in order, that would be, a chain of success for educating our students at the high school, what would those 3 priorities be?
As Ms. Zaleski will present on her budget, that we do need a guidance person, another full-time guidance person. We have 2.5. It was 3 for a number of years with a guidance director, but we need to get back up to those numbers. That would be my first recommendation. My second would be a curriculum coordinator for the district, and then additional teachers,
Okay, thank you.
specifically in biology and math.
Thank you. How many open classrooms do you have at the high school at this point?
At this point, we have 2 open classrooms. But not all classrooms are used 100% of the day.
Sure, yeah, I understand it, but you have 2 open classrooms
Correct.
100% of the day.
Correct.
Okay. The average class sizes, and I understand that the high school giving AP classes and whatnot, because they're not identified here, whether they're AP classes or straight classes. So let's just take the math classes. There's 18 students in a class, and there's 5 of them. Is it possible to reduce that to 4 classes of 22?
No, what we do have now, we might have, due to the confines of a schedule, what the students need, we will have 24 in one class. With the AP class being small, we might have 27 in another class. The numbers are getting up there. It's tough to look at the numbers and divide by the teachers and say, this is what you have.
So unlike other schools in the district, you really can't go by these average class sizes?
No.
What you tell them?
No, we'd have to go probably a 3-year average of each class to get an accurate picture. But if you were just going to do the full-time equivalency, that would be, 20 is the average class size. That's what the DOE will say, Department of Education will say. But some classes, yeah, we're over 30 in some classes. And then the AP classes, we might have 14.
Okay. At your school, the paraprofessionals, what's their job description in general?
Okay. At the high school, the paraprofessionals work with students that are on IEPs to make sure that their accommodation plans were following the law. So that teacher would be working with those students in the classroom, making sure they're on task, doing their work. One of our paraprofessionals is a one-on-one, as outlined in the student's IEP, and the majority of the paraprofessionals work in the life skills classroom.
How does that differentiate from a sped teacher in the school?
Okay. At the high school, we only have 2 special ed teachers, and then our life skills teacher. Additional special education help would be appreciated. It is cheaper to follow the law of the IEP with a classroom aide, as outlined in the IEP. It would be worthwhile expanding our special ed staff. With only 2 teachers that serve the entire student population outside of life skills, that's not a lot.
Okay. The last question, actually, a couple of more questions, I'm sorry. Coaches' stipends, $5,499 increase for this year. Again, where is that? I have the stipend schedule, but I don't see anything that shows a step, if you will, brackets.
Julie has her hand up.
Can I just answer? So this year, when we went through the budget, and now I've gotten more detail, we're actually going to be short about that much. We'll have money in the gate receipts to cover it, but that is really what we're going to be paying out this year. So that's where the change. We didn't put any steps or anything into that.
So there aren't any steps. Okay, I didn't
Not
think.
any steps in there. It's really just that we were going to be short this year because I didn't have all the breakdown the way I do now for what we were going to need to pay. So we're going to have to cover some of that under the gate receipts for this year, and that's what the total list should be for
Okay,
both years.
fair enough.
But the coaches do have a 1, 2, and 3 on their steps for coaching. 1, 2, or 3 is their lanes.
That is in the contract, but that's not what the 5,000 is.
Okay. Summer clerical, $6,000. I heard what you said. My question is it one person in the office? Is it multiple people in the office? What does this represent?
That would be for 2 secretaries for an additional, what was it, 7 weeks?
However many days the summer is.
7 weeks throughout the summer.
So 2 secretaries in the office all day for 7 weeks, for the summer.
Yes, 8 to 2 are the office hours throughout the summer. Of course, they do take their vacation, they do have holidays, but the level of interruption during the school day really limit us from doing what should be done during the summer, Mr. Bayshant and myself.
All right. That was all the questions that I had at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other members want to be recognized for any questions for Mr. O'Brien? No? I just have a couple of follow-ups myself, Bob. In regards to that summer clerical time, isn't that typically two people that share the time during the course of the week? They're not both on at the same time, are they? Doesn't one cover a couple days?
We do overlap days.
Okay.
Some days, but we close the office on Friday throughout the summer, but we want someone there every day for the public to come in.
Okay.
If Mr. Bayshine and myself happen to be at a conference or out of the building on our own vacation time, we do like to have someone in there.
I definitely can see the need. You're there doing schedulers and getting things ready for September if you're wasting your time answering the phone.
The start of this year, I think the public was not happy with the start of the school year because everything had to be done the first day of school.
Right.
So we took a hit on that.
Okay. The bookkeeper's position was eliminated. Who's doing that work now? With that,
That would be me.
that's you, so you're the bookkeeper now.
Yes, sir.
All right. In regards to the virtual high school, the $7,500, give me an example of some of the programs that our advanced placement kids would have access to that they don't have access to now.
Specifically, we had a student take AP French, and she got into Brown University. No, she got into Harvard. But it's really the top achieving students. This is not an escape for a student to take an online class versus the high school. These are our top-notch students that work well independently, that need the extra incentives. The same way we have support for students that need it.
Right.
We need to address the needs of our high-paced learners.
Could a student take like an engineering class or
Yes,
something?
yes, we have someone in that one right now.
Okay.
I would love to, be fine to provide to the committee a whole breakdown of what the VHS has for offerings, but it's pretty large.
Yeah, I'm in full support of it. I think it's a great program, and I think it should help us to try to keep the numbers down for students leaving because of us not being able to give them some of these advanced courses.
I agree that blended learning, the learning with online classes, working through the high school, that is an avenue for us to give solid learning in a vast number of areas that we normally couldn't have had.
Yep. Not to beat this door issue to death, but at 30,000, do you have any idea, like, how many pairs of doors are we talking about, or? I know you've
believe
done
that was
this.
three.
Three
And
pairs?
as you see at the front of the high school, there is the glass doors that used to be the old blue wooden doors. The school was built in '66, so just the wear and tear. It's the outside doors by the band room that goes outside. By the academic wing, the side door by the Planet Aid and the book bin canisters, and then by the hallway going to the gymnasium, those doors. Again, these are all, we repaired and fixed some of the doors. Those are working out great. But these ones, yeah, through wear and tear.
Now, would I be correct? I've been told that some of the ones that are more worn, just with movement of strong winds and stuff, it's setting off the alarms, the police come, and then we pay a fee for having the police respond?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that we abide by the fire codes.
Right.
So there's not too much that we can do with these doors.
In regards to the roof that needs to be patched, is that the B building? The roof of
Yes.
the B building, okay. It seems to me like we've been patching that thing for like the last 20 years.
Yeah, I
You
think
ha- How many times?
last time it was probably 25 years since the last time the
Oh, it has been that long?
roof has been completed. Because you might have a leak over here, and where it comes down in the school is way over here.
Yeah.
And
Is this just one leak or one patch, or? is
we
it-
wouldn't know until we
don't-
start digging it up. My assumption is there's several leaks, and then it comes down, it ruins the ceiling tiles.
And you think it was about 25 years ago was when it was
It was
all
in the
done?
early 80s.
Okay. Okay. Let's see, going back,
If I can, Mr. Chairman, just, someone had raised the question about whether repairs such as this might qualify under SBA, and they really don't, given the smallness of the project, if you will, but we're going to see if there's something else. different from what the typical funding would be. Generally, something like this would have to be rolled into a much larger project when you get into a renovation project, but right now, we don't have any silver lining to get some help.
Of course, the board would always have the option to put together a debt exclusion question for these items as well, to send down, to have taxpayers vote on.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the new building project that we were on, things were kind of pushed, the can was kicked down the road,
Right.
and now we're stuck with inadequate facilities.
Well, it just seems to me that these are two issues. One is of a security issue, if people can just pull the doors and open them up and get in, and the other one is a leaking roof. I mean, we can't wait till we have money to fix a leaking roof. It's got to get fixed somehow, you know?
I agree. Wanted to make sure, and the superintendent wanted me to make sure that I bring it to committee's attention.
In regards to your class sizes, and I could see where Mr. Cloutier was going with this, I think what we need from you is a breakdown of class sizes for AP classes, for honors classes, and for the standard college or the standard classroom student classes, for those that aren't in the college program. Could you get that to us
I'd be happy
the next day or so? Then I think that way we'll have a better view, because right now you look at this and you say, gee, maybe we could do with one less English teacher or whatever, but we don't know what the breakdown is for all those classes and the problem schedule-wise as far
Right.
as trying to make a change. So if you could get that,
I'd be happy to. And the fewer teachers we have, the fewer options students have with the classes, so the tighter that scheduling hole becomes. Because we do not have two teachers teaching senior English the same period. So now that student is, all right, I can only take English block 1.
right,
And that limits the flexibility in the course offerings. Some course offerings ebb and flow. We see the uptick in our music programs this year. Mrs. Boussier does a tremendous job, and she brings in those students, so she'll have very large class size. But again, if the scheduling needs aren't fit, we're not satisfying the customer.
right, yep. And you touched on an issue that's somewhat of a pet peeve for me, and that was block scheduling, with your block schedules. Give me 2 or 3 top advantages that you think to block scheduling and 2 or 3 disadvantages of it,
Sure.
just from your,
On block scheduling, it is the fewest amount of teachers required to teach. If you go to a 7-period rotation, you would need more staff.
yeah,
A benefit I've seen coming from a 7-period day to a block schedule, the minimum passing time. The students aren't in the halls. So if you think of a 7-period day, 35 minutes of that is in passing time. So we really cut down on that traffic, and usually between classes, that's where you can have problems. So this way, it gives you the most on-time learning out of any schedule. Every schedule has pros and cons, no matter where you look. Some schools are going to trimesters. Nobody has solved it. You know, it's when I talk to principals in the area, they all have different schedules, and it's always on their mind, what are you doing for scheduling? It's a conversations we have a lot as principals. It also forces good teaching habits. You cannot have a teacher up there lecturing for 90 minutes. It's impossible. So it really forces good teaching habits of doing group instruction and minimizing the lecture to an adequate amount of time. A drawback is, can you keep a student's attention for 90 minutes in the class? That would be a drawback.
yeah. Has the staff had training, professional development training in teaching these extended 90-minute courses? In other words, are we moving from a teacher-centered instruction to a student-centered instruction with the block scheduling? Are we bringing teams of kids together and having them play a bigger role in the classroom?
I think block scheduling does provide a more intimate learning for the student because they're there that long. We did 2 or 3 years ago, we did a poll, and overwhelmingly the students themselves stated that they liked the block scheduling. It was over 70% of the students liked that scheduling. It's easy for them to keep track of their day. And they also can take another semester's worth of courses. So if they don't like Mr. O'Brien, their English teacher, they get rid of him in January instead of having him for the whole entire year.
Right.
So the students' feedback, they like the schedule. Staff, I would say it's probably split 50-50 on whether they like the block or, I mean.
Because that brings up another issue, because are we taking students out of math, science, and biology and letting them take CPR or basket weaving or whatever the additional classes are that we're allowing to be taught that they wouldn't have if we weren't in a block schedule? I'm not so sure, I'm not convinced yet of the benefits of taking those core courses away from the kids to provide them with the opportunity for all these other electives that may or may not be a benefit to them down the road when they further their education. So,
You are correct that the core classes come first, and that has to satisfy their scheduling needs before they can move into an elective class. So when we do schedule the students, the priority is on their core classes, their requirements, and then if they have electives, they can pick them. We don't offer basket weaving, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And how do you address the problem with sequential classes, say, a foreign language, or where a student, say, is taken, and I don't know if you have this here, Latin 1
So if they
in September, and Latin 2's not offered to the following September.
the spring of the next year, right?
Yeah, how do you,
That's one of the drawbacks. That's tough. One of the benefits is we'll give a kid a lot of chances at bat to pass those classes that they might not originally have with a year-long schedule. But that is a huge problem if they take a foreign language in the fall and they don't have it until the spring of the following year. The retention they're going to lose. We see what happens over summer vacation.
yeah.
So it's a worthy question.
I know I've experienced with some of the kids, there's so much content that has to be covered in that one semester, that sometimes you get to those last 3 or 4 weeks, and you're now covering a chapter or two in biology, or whatever the subject is, and there's somewhat of an overload for the students, but it has to be done in order to meet the requirements to be able to complete the curriculum of the course. And that's a concern for me as well. But I guess what my real concern is, and I know this was here when you came here, but I think far too many districts jumped onto this block schedule, and it was the new fad out there. And there was very little data to support any of their claims of the reasons that they gave for going to block schedule. And it's something that I'm going to be asking the board to address. And in that vein, what type of a scheduling problem would it cause for you if there were a change to go back to a regular 7 period? And what would you foresee as the time frame that you would need to be able to do that?
I think the first hurdle would be contractual language. If you go to a 7-period day, that reintroduces the need for a study hall, directed study. It's nice not having directed studies, and those classes sometimes can be hard to manage. So that's a benefit of block scheduling, is not having directed studies or study hall. The time frame to look at it, I would say probably 2 years to get it through the Teachers Association and giving us enough time to set up and schedule it. I do believe it requires more staff. That was a benefit of block scheduling. It required fewer teachers. So to run a 7-period day, we need additional staff. As we look into incorporating the Mass Core curriculum, that might be a direction we go. Our students are not following the Mass Core curriculum right now due to budget cuts. And that's something that could be as simple as 2 units of art. We don't have the staff for that, but that's part of the Mass Core curriculum. They have 3-year requirements, 4-year requirements for math. We have a 3-year requirement for math. Most students probably do take 4 years, those planning on going to colleges, but to fulfill the Mass Core curriculum, it's going to require additional teachers, and that might be a good time to look at changing the schedule.
And my last question would be in regards to your budget in regards to the business department. I saw there was a cut there, I think, from 4,000 to 1,000 or something like that in that ballpark. Would any of those funds be used for technology purposes in the business department?
I would hold off on that until the district present its budget, because some of the technology needs is addressed in the district budget.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. All right, if you could just get us that information on the
Be happy
breakdown on the classrooms and,
Right.
are there any other questions from any members?
Mr. Chairman.
Kurt?
Just to get back to ask Dr. Malvy on those doors and on their roof, could we apply for that pothole fund to get any help?
We already have applied for it, yes.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, did you have anything you wanted to comment on?
No,
Anything you
no,
heard?
no, I think we're good to go on it.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
No,
O'Brien.
thank you, I appreciate this format. It's very interesting, and I will get that information. Thank you.
Okay, moving forward, the next item on the agenda would be the presentation for Knox Trail. That will be done by Principal Joyce Nelson. Thank you for coming, Joyce. We'll get down and take a seat.
Right, to go forward, just to go back, this start, this pointy thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so to begin with our supplies budget, there's a change of an additional $49,049, salaries, I'm sorry. That's due to school choice. It's not that we're adding a new teacher, it's just for lack of school choice money. Our supplies have increased by $1,913. Our custodial supplies and maintenance have increased by $2,734, for a total increase of $53,696. There isn't really a lot of change up there. One thing that we're going to be looking at, which I'm going to talk to you about, is our clerical. We're at 1.7. That's just a very slight change. Also, if you look at teacher size, classroom and special teachers, we're at 22 teachers, which is exactly where we were at prior to adding grade 6 to our building. So we have the same number of teachers now that we had when we only had 7th and 8th grade, and we've added another grade at Knox Trail. Our nurses' salary, pretty much, it's the same. Everything is pretty much the same all the way down. Our athletic, our custodians, we have 2.5. We actually have 1 full-time and 3 part-time. Athletic stipends, they've gone down a little bit. Extracurricular stipends went up just a smidge. Officials, that stayed the same. AV stipends the same. Nurse and substitute went up a little bit, and our subtotal is up, the change of $49,049. Enrollment, these are projected enrollment for next year. Grade 6 is estimated at 100 students. It's an average class size of 25. There are 4 teachers for grade 6. Grade 7, 125 students. Average class size is 21, 6 classroom teachers. Grade 8, 145 students. Average class size of 24 with 6 teachers. Principal supplies went up $100. Postage, we brought down $125. Let's see, everything's pretty much the same. Library supplies was brought down. We took that out because it was added to a different line item. I'll get to that. Let's see, copy equipment went down some. Teacher supplies and materials is up $308. AV supplies and materials is the same. Everything there is pretty much the same. Instructional software, if you can see that it's up, it's 2,082. That went up a little bit, and I'll be happy to address that when you come back up. For a subtotal, a change of $1,913. Custodial supplies are down a bit. Rubbish removal has come down, that's great. Pest control, it looks like we're not gonna have any pests. Well, actually, it stayed the same. Heating, all of these are pretty much an average, and really a lot of it's out of our control. For heating, gas, telephone. Building maintenance was kept the same. That was just deducted down a little bit, $950, and it's just a slight increase of 2,700 something. Okay, so what I'm requesting, and this is actually my wish list, and I would be happy to prioritize that for you if you ask me to choose which one I absolutely need. And I mean, I would love them all, and I feel I need them all, but I'm looking for $6,000 for additional clerical time. And I'll be happy to explain. My needs are a little bit different than the high school. I'm looking for 4,000, whoops, did I do that? Sorry. Thanks, Bob. Go on the last one. That's it, great. Thank you. Whoops. You had it a second ago. It was just that last page right there. Yeah, I don't know why it's not coming up. There goes my wish. There we go. Oh, now we're back to page 1.
Just forward with that.
Yeah, this is which one, right? Thank you. Okay. So it's $6,000 for additional clerical time. $4,000 is just a guesstimate for team leaders. That would have to be something that was contractual, and I would be happy to discuss what I feel the need, very specifically what I would need team leaders to do. We took out workbook money, so I'm requesting $2,500 back for workbooks, particularly for 6th grade teachers who always, they used workbooks, and when they came up to my school, that money was wiped out, so they didn't have any additional money for workbooks. I'm asking to bring back $1,000 for library books and supplies, and I'm asking for $4,000 to bring back the conflict mediation program, which is actually a district program, grades 4 to 12, which I was very happy to discuss with you. And those are my things that I would wish for in a perfect world. And that's it.
Okay, I haven't heard Mrs. Nelson's presentation. Any questions from any of the board members? Mr. Cludier?
Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Joyce. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So I'll ask you the same question.
Sure.
What part of the budget that you just presented to us addresses some of the issues that were raised in the DSAC report?
A big one is the team leader piece. What we're looking for is a way to align the curriculum. That's really important to us, is to align the curriculum, and team leaders would help us to do that. We're working more towards data-driven practices. So by having team leaders, I have 4 teams in my building, it would allow me, and just to let you know, when I took the job over 3 years ago, we were not teamed. Best practice for a middle school is to have teaming in a school. So I teamed that building, and for 2 years we had team leaders, and then this year it was taken out of the budget. I do want you to know that the 4 team leaders that I've had are doing the job, but they're doing it without a pay. And I really do appreciate that. The purpose for team leaders is so that, first of all, each team leader represents the team that they work on, and each team leader represents a specific content. So I can bring 4 people together, and we can look at curriculum, we can look at data, we can look at bringing those things back to the team, we can look at interdisciplinary units for the team. So, you know, aligning curriculum was something that was in the DSAC report, which is very important, and that's what those team leaders are doing for me and with me. So that's very important. Another thing that I think, it's not in my budget because it would be such a huge ticket item that I don't know how I could even ask for it, but I personally think, and I'm glad you're asking me that, we absolutely need to have a math program K to 8. We are lacking a program. We are using math books I know in most buildings from 1998. We need to align our curriculum by having an aligned math program. So again, that's not in my budget because that's something we have to look at as a district. Most importantly to me is aligning the curriculum, providing a safe environment for students is very important to me. And when we look at, I know that Mr. O'Brien talked about having a curriculum person, which in a perfect world, that would be great. But I feel like we're doing good work with curriculum right now with the people that we have. And I also believe in distributive leadership. And so by putting people in buildings, you know, you can't have one person driving the curriculum. It's a team effort that everyone has to buy into. So I feel like having department heads and having team leaders, people buy into that. They're all working together on that. And just for instance, today we had a faculty forum meeting, and we talked about coming up with district determined measures. We talked about assessment, where departments can sit down and look at assessment. That has to be done collectively with all teachers. It can't be one person. So for me, I think aligning the curriculum is really important. I like the work that we've been doing. I like that, you know, Dr. Malvey and Karen have kind of made it distributive leadership. They're at the helm, but it has to be something that's done with the teachers. So for me, having team leaders is very, very important. And for me, I think having a math program is very important in building programs. So, you know, that's something that I feel very passionately about. I don't know if I answered your question because I kind of went off. Sorry.
No, you did. That's fine. You answered a couple of them, but that's fine. Help me understand a couple of other things.
Sure.
The clerical need.
Okay. For as long as I was at Knox Trail, we had one secretary and one clerk in the office. My clerk was cut down to 0.7, and it's really impacted our school. It really is a dollar amount that it says $6,000, but I would be very willing to try to work around making that a little bit less if I could or had to. What my clerk does, we have building use calendar, she takes care of that. By cutting that clerk down to 0.7, she's not a full-time employee anymore. Also, too, we have, I was just looking at this number today, projected for next year, we have 64 students on IEPs, which means every time there's a meeting, and there's several meetings, there has to be coverage provided for teachers. My clerk does all of that. She finds that coverage for those teachers. She does the calendar for night building usage. It's just a ton that she's done that has really taken away. And it's a small amount of money. Also, too, we did not have any help in the office all summer. We have kids transferring in, transferring out. For the junior high, if we have kids that are going into private schools, they're looking for transcripts. I would like a little bit of help in the summer. I don't need full-time help all summer, but I'd like to have even a week when school ends and a week before school begins, that would cover that. So I don't know how tight that $6,000 is, but for me, I really want to put my clerk back to full-time. Also, too, she can help with the books. The clerk at Knox Trail used to do the books all the time. There's a lot of work to be done with the books now. So it is $6,000. I think that we could make it a little bit less if we could find other ways to tweak it, but it would be really important to me to get that position back to full-time.
Does that clerk, that $6,000, let's just say, does that put somebody in your office for the summer?
It would help. It would give her back to full-time and give me some summer help. It wouldn't put someone in full-time all summer, but I don't know that I really need someone full-time all summer.
So let me ask the question a different way, because I'm not sure you're following me. When you say full-time, are we talking 180 days, or are we talking full-time 52 weeks a year?
180 days,
Okay, so we're talking school year.
yes.
Okay.
I would like to have a secretary and a clerk full-time for the school year. And then if out of that I can tweak some summertime, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Can you talk to me a little bit about the conflict mediation program?
Sure. You really will have to shut me off because it's something I'm very passionate about.
The chairman will take care of that.
I know. So, feel free. We had conflict mediation at Knox in this district for 20 years. I started it with Mary Ann Hammond. Richard Cohen is the school mediation. We use his model. He wrote the program. He's all over the world. What the program is, it's a peer mediation program. We actually teach students, we train students in a 2-day training how to mediate conflict between their peers. It's wonderful. Also, the cost associated with that is I also train adults. At one time, we were training the state police this model. We were doing a lot of work with mediation. We did family mediation. The best part of it is that we empower kids to help each other to resolve that kind of petty conflict that if we can nip it in the bud and we can teach those skills to kids, it does help school administration. I know at the high school, Jerry Benjamin is running that program. A couple of my advisors are still doing mediations for free. The reason that there's a stipend associated, and it was a cheap stipend, I mean, we paid people $500 and to be an advisor, and they would give up prep periods to do the mediations. With $4,000, it would put mediation back 4 to 12 in all the buildings. It would provide for training time. It would provide for supplies. This is the first year in 20 years that we haven't had mediation. I feel it in my school. I know that the high school does. I'm sure that Wire Village would benefit by having that program. I mean, I do know it's a luxury. I do know that, if we couldn't, take care of it, we couldn't. But I would be remorse if I didn't stand up and talk about what a valuable program we lost when we cut this budget last year. So I'll stop talking now.
Okay. I have one other question.
Sure.
So help me understand what would happen if we removed one of the 7th grade classes, 6 to 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, sure.
You currently have 21, oh, you probably have the sheet, I don't need it.
Sure. I know on paper it looks like 21 kids per class, but some of those classes are larger depending upon if it's an inclusion class or not an inclusion class. This is just an average class size. 7th and 8th grade, they have to be specialists, so I can't let them teach out of their area. So I have to have those content specialists for that grade. So although it looks like a class average size, if I have an inclusion class, that might be a smaller class, which would make other classes larger. So that really is just an average right there. I mean, it would also really mess up our ability to team the building, which I think is very valuable for interdisciplinary. So, I mean, I know on paper that looks like a pretty small class size, but it also it fluctuates. So I see where your question is, and I see that by the numbers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all 7th grade class sizes are 21. We may have an inclusion class that has 15 kids, which would make other classes larger.
No, I appreciate the answer. I understand what you're saying. Understand where I'm going.
I do.
I'm not looking to remove teachers from the district. That's really not the intent here at all. I'm looking at your needs, and I think they're valuable. I think they're important. I think that they have a lot of merit, and I'm trying to figure out how to take that square peg and put it in the round hole.
I do, I see that.
So that I'm just looking at every possible way of doing this. And one last question before I let you go. If you could tell me, how many open classrooms do you have currently at Knox Trail?
Currently, right now, we have 4. One of those classrooms is a chorus room that's behind the gym. But all of our special ed teachers have their own classroom. So, currently open, we have 4.
I said last question, Mr. Chairman, if you indulge me, one more. You brought up a point, and I'd like to ask you, and I'd like to go back to Mr. O'Brien after.
Okay.
Good to ask him. As far as safety of the students at the school, how would you rate it?
Honest, what's the scale?
1 to 10.
10, it's 9. 8. 8.
Let me define what I'm calling safety.
Okay.
Because it can be a very subjective word.
Okay.
I'm referring to the safety of the students once they're in the school, the safety of the students when they're, at recess and whatnot, for the supervision of the students, when they're on field trips, whatever they might be doing in the school, and when school's in session.
I really have to say 9.
Okay.
Okay. The only way that I think that we could improve that, and this will again be a capital gains, capital improvement. I'm sorry, capital gains, just my taxes. Capital improvement. I would really like to see us update our video cameras inside of our building. We are on the ball with our kids. We are very strict. If a student writes on the bathroom wall, I'm not even kidding you, we find out who it is. Jody analyzes the handwriting. Honestly, I'm not kidding you. She's not, CSI. We're very strict with the kids. We have to be. We're junior high kids. They're not adults yet. They're not little kids. We're on them all the time. We're out and about. We really have our eye on the kids. You really have to. I think we do a good job. So I don't give us a 10 because everybody can get better, but I do think that we do a very good job to provide a safe environment for kids.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Joyce, I think one thing we will need is, from you as well, is a breakdown on the class sizes. And we'd like to see those that, those that are inclusion classes and those that are regular classes, so that we can better evaluate where we think we sit staffing-wise.
Okay. Do you want me to do that based on, so that would really have to look at how we were going to schedule the building next year? Because these numbers are projected on next year. So I talked with Dr. Malvey today. We're trying to we met today. We're trying to look at what our schedule will look like next year. So I will do the best I can to get those numbers to you. I do know what the numbers are in terms of special ed students coming in, and so I will do that, sure.
There's no real rush. We just need to have them by the end of
Absolutely.
the day tomorrow.
Okay, great. My programs are starting tonight.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Chairman,
Correct?
I just want to go back to that conflict mediation.
Sure.
Does that have something to do with Karen Selesky's in the psychologist and special ed? Is it on the same page here or what?
Well, it lends itself to it, Kurt, because what it does is we also have to have a safety plan, a district-wide safety plan. And it's part of that plan. It's an intervention plan, if you will. It isn't really part of what Karen oversees. It's one less thing that she oversees. But it does really lend itself to school safety. So it is in our safety plan, but it's not under her direction.
Now, this 4,000, is this a part-time job for an individual, or?
Well, what it would be, I broke it down. Let's see. So we generally have someone oversee the program, and that for the last year was Jerry Benjamin. I did it when I was in the classroom. That was my job. You have to do a full two-day training. Then you have to follow up and go into the schools and meet with kids and do some more training. But I'm just looking to see. It's right here. So what we would have is we would have one position at East Brookfield, 2 positions at Wire Village, 2 at Knox Trail, and 2 at David Prouty. They would each get a $500 stipend, so that's, and then also for supplies. The supplies are, every student gets a binder with the training materials in it. Richard Cohen has been very, very generous. He did the original training for us several years ago. I've done training with him. Generally, he gets money for copyright every time you do it, but he's been so great to our district that I've been running off his materials for decades. So I actually make up the training materials, so supplies would be the binders, the kids get the binders and things like that. So that would actually bring this program back into this district, grades 4 to 12. So the money involved is just really a stipend for an advisor, because peer mediation is done by kids. 2 mediators will sit down with 2 kids in conflict and help them to work it out. But there always has to be an adult present. So that would put the adult in there. They're giving up their prep time to sit and listen to the mediation. Also, too, it's very, very specific. Mediation is voluntary, and it's confidential unless it's life-threatening or illegal. They have to work very closely with the principals. So it's, you know, it's a really pretty great program.
If you would, Joyce, include a breakdown for us on that program when you give us the other info.
Sure.
Okay. Another question, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kurt.
Just to get back to that, Mr. Chairman, if it's $4,000 for all the schools, why are you being charged $4,000? Why isn't every school being charged $500?
Oh, no, they would be. I said when I was in the classroom, I was in charge, I oversaw this program. So we would need to find someone to oversee the program, and I'm happy to do it if you would want me to do it. But you do need to have a person that does the training. It's really a 2 full days of a training. You have to teach the kids listening skills, the confidentiality, how to ask open-ended questions. You have to really teach the kids how to mediate. So it's a pretty intensive program. And so you do need to have someone do the training, oversee it. So, you know, it's a pretty, you get an awful lot for that much money.
Just to get back to, you can have 2 students. If there's a problem, you'll sit down with the student.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the student going to say? Well, I'm not going to listen to you, Mr. O'Brien, or you, Mrs. Nelson. You're just another student. I mean, you know, where's this going here? I mean, I can understand it, and I support it, but, you know, how is 3 kids going to sit down and tackle something, and the other kids say, I'm not going to listen to you?
Well, the way that mediation works is mediation is confidential and it's voluntary. So let's say you have 2 kids, and you know, what's so amazing to me is that we're actually responsible for kids from when they leave the house in the morning until they get home in the afternoon. So, I mean, there can be some conflict on the way home from school, and that's our problem. Particularly with all the social media stuff going on, 2 kids will come to school after the weekend and say, so-and-so called me a name, or they said something about me on Facebook. If it's not a level that we have to intervene, if it's just 2 kids that are squabbling, we can say, would you like to go to mediation? Which now allows those kids to work it out. So both parties have to say, yes, I'm willing to go to mediation. It's an opportunity, we give the kids an opportunity to work it out prior to having it become a discipline issue. So those kids will go to mediation. The advisor in the building has to get the kids, sit them down, all 4 of them, and then sit with the kids. There's a whole script they go through. They give, you know, welcome to mediation. Mediation is voluntary. Here's the rules. There's no put-downs, no violence. You need to listen to each other. And the goal of mediation is to come up with an agreement that you can both live with. And then they ask the kids, now that you've heard about mediation, would you like to try it? Then they say, who would like to speak first? Both parties have an opportunity to talk about what's going on. And then eventually the goal is to write an agreement that those kids can live with. then hopefully the conflict's over. If it's not, these kids have been given an opportunity to work out their own difference. If it's not over at that point, then it bumps up to be a discipline issue. But most times, the things that we're dealing with are these he said, she said things that we need to teach kids how to work out on their own.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask a question. On the heating, is that gas heat up at the Knox Tree, or is that oil heat?
We have gas, the only gas we have is for the kitchen, and then we have oil.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question, Mr. Chairman. I see here, it says it's nurse substitute. We got a nurse and a half, is that what you're telling me, or?
No, we just have one nurse, but you have to have a nurse there, so if she's out sick, it's so that we can call in a substitute.
Well, if that's the case, could that be a float for the whole district? If a nurse is out at East Brookfield or high school? Would that be a float that they could float through the whole school?
Sure, I think
Well, I'm
so.
just asking a question, because you got a substitute nurse here. I didn't see it under Mr. O'Brien.
Every school has.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. You know, and actually, we had a nurse out, our nurse was out today, and I think that your nurse was out also, and we couldn't get substitutes. They tried, they called a lot of people, and I have to tell you, Mrs. Dalton, the nurse from this building, was running. She had to be at my building first thing in the morning to give medications. She came back because we had plenty of kids throwing up today. She came in during lunch to give medication and then running back and forth between schools. Really, she did a wonderful job, and I appreciate that. But we have to have a nurse on
Yep.
because we have kids that have to take medication. And as much as I would like to help, I am not allowed to give out that medication.
No, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else with any questions?
I have a question.
Heather?
Can you just tell me what a daily student schedule is like? How many class periods?
Sure. We have 6 class periods. We have 6 periods a day, and then we have an advisory period at the end of the day. Students have their 4 core subjects, and then they have gym. Well, I wrote this down. I'm not going to try to guess. One second.
5 core subjects this year. 5, all kids have 5 core.
All 5 core subjects. And a special. Do you want to know all those specials? They have, here we go. They have art, music. 7th and 8th grade have foreign language, reading, STEM, and gym.
What's STEM?
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
Thank you.
It's a testable subject. Reading is a core.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
All set, Heather? Okay. Having said that, explaining what your schedule is, would you see any advantage to any type of a block schedule or modified block schedule?
God, no, thank you.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't, I don't have any opinion as far as how it works for the high school,
Just
but I
asking
know
you.
for the junior high kids, for me, I think it would be too long a period for the kids to stay on task. I like the fact that the kids have many different subjects over the course of the day just to keep their interests going and just to keep their attention.
Now, do you have any special programs for advanced placement at your grade level?
We have advanced math for some kids. Some of our kids that are getting foreign, we have some kids that don't get foreign language because they need extra support in reading. So that's the foreign language piece. I don't think we do any, and I think we have an honors English class.
Okay, so those 5 core classes, your students are in those classes throughout the whole year?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, all right. And has anything been done, I know at one point there was some discussion in regards to one of the guidance teachers, I think, that was added at the high school, and there was some discussion that we were going to try to do some type of program where we would try to stop the bleeding of students leaving from Knox Trail in the transition up here to freshman year.
Yes.
Have you teamed up with the high school and put anything in place to do that?
No,
No, okay.
sorry.
All right. Then that might be a question for Mr. O'Brien when he comes up to answer Mr. Clutier's other question. So I have no other questions. Anyone else have any? Heather?
I just have one more. Do you have pre-algebra and algebra? What do you offer for math courses?
We have pre-algebra and algebra, and we have a general math.
Okay.
Anyone else?
There's also some math covered in the STEM program, which he reinforces what's done in the classroom.
Okay, well, thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. O'Brien, could you just come back up for a second? Could you just tell me, in regards to the guidance position, and the name is escaping me, but we had some discussion of perhaps putting a program together where we might be taking athletes, scholar students here from the high school, and going down and making visits at the junior high to try to show those eighth graders all the things that Prouty had to offer and the advantages of coming here, and you can still go anywhere you want from Prouty. Has any of that taken place, or is it in the works?
Yeah, we have a parents' orientation coming up in March for eighth grade parents coming up, and that will be towards the end of March. What we want to do next year, and that was Mr. Donahue from the guidance department, is move that up to earlier in the school year, to October or November, before they start going out and looking at other schools. Let them know exactly what they have to offer at Prouty ahead of time. And then, with Mr. Donahue's work, try to get some of the students to stop down periodically and be some of the peer leaders, mentoring those students at the junior high.
Okay. My concern is that I think it has to be done this year, and I'm not satisfied in just waiting for the parents' night in March. I want to see high school students from here that are successful academically, that have gone on to other colleges or are still here that are seniors, or have excelled in sports. I want to see those kids going down and having some interaction with junior high students. And I may be addressing this to the wrong person. Maybe I should be talking to the superintendent about this. But I just want you to know where I'm coming from on it, and I think it's too important to let go. We've got to do something about the exodus of students that we're losing coming from the eighth grade to here. And I think to have other role models and other students talking to these eighth graders and letting them know how great David Prouty is and all the things you can do, I don't think we can buy that. I think we have to take advantage of what we have here in these trying times, to keep as many students as we possibly can. But I'll discuss that further with the superintendent and speak with you about it. And Mr. Clutie had a question, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I omitted this. I had a safety question, the same safety question. How would you rate the safety of the students when they're in your care, control, and custody?
For the class of 2013, we took part in a University of Michigan study that was nationwide. They called upon David Prouty High School to participate. The results which I received today, and I asked the students specifically of the battery of questions, do you feel safe in your school? And I would say over 90% of the students felt safe or very safe within the walls of David Prouty. So it's nice to hear that student feedback. We may look at something differently, but if the student's afraid of going to the bathroom and we're not there, we don't realize it. So I would like to provide to the committee the response from that survey so you can take a look at it and see what the students think about the school, which I think would be far more powerful than me stating it.
But on a scale of 1 to 10, your opinion?
I would say 10. I would like to have cameras additional. But the behavior there, it's a great bunch of students. Teachers do a good job to keeping an eye on them. If you come into the cafeteria at lunch, you'll see over 100 students, very well behaved. I don't think we could have 100 adults make a smaller mess as when they are there. But it is a very safe place.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And just to get back on your, through the chair to Mr. Cloutier, your DSAC question. You asked what was in the budget, and we've done many things not needing a budget recommendation to complete those tasks. And I'd be very happy if those folks came back at this point and saw what was in place. Tom Laney is coming on Thursday, and where we have moved so far, is a big difference than what the report showed. So we made a lot of progress since that note. But
Glad to hear that.
budgetarily, it was not, didn't need a dollar sign, just needed a different focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Dr. Malvey, just a couple of questions for you on some of the stuff that we've heard here. Mrs. Nelson talked about the team leaders. Can you explain to me, with everything that you're doing with the curriculum folks, is any of that doubling up? Are there any team leaders in the curriculum effort that you're making with Karen Zaleski and the team of people? Any of those team leaders, or is any of that going to shake out to end up with team leaders?
No, not directly.
Okay.
And I think, to go back to Joyce's point, she said that despite not having it formally recognized, there are still people serving in that capacity. And I think that's a good thing about Spencer East Brookfield, that people have stepped up despite limited resources that we have. So I say not directly, and we certainly have not put it into the budget proper. We've put it as a request if we can start to make some incremental steps forward in a lot of these areas. But indirectly, in a little bit different fashion, if you will, if you go back to our early conversations about our curriculum efforts in the district, of creating a district curriculum committee and then building leadership teams, that's all being done by people stepping forward in a very similar capacity to team leader roles and responsibilities, but specifically dealing with curriculum. So we have had a large number of people step forward to serve on their time at the district curriculum committee level, and then similarly at the building leadership team level. And that's what the DSAC folks were referring to, a few weeks ago when they gave their report, which had a lot of downside to it, but the upside was we already began the process to address the issue. So indirectly, it's coming through that. And I think that's going to be our ticket to success, because it's going to be some time before we have the financial resources to build specifically into the budget. But that's not going to stop us, and as long as we have those folks that are willing to put in their professional time on behalf of the students and the programs here in the district, we're going to continue to improve.
Okay. And the math alignment program that Joyce alluded to, is that also something that perhaps this curriculum team that you've got together would be working on?
Absolutely. What we've done is, and the reference that the DSAC folks made a few weeks ago was on the Accelerated Improvement Plan, AIP. Welcome to the world of acronyms, but this is what we deal with. So within the Accelerated Improvement Plan, we have specifically focused in on ELA, English Language Arts, and mathematics, and we're targeting kindergarten through grade 8 this year here to do the best we can, go as far as we can with the curriculum alignment, which is involving what we call a mapping exercise, and we hope to be able to have that fairly well complete, at least in its beginning stages, by the close of this school year, and then we'll continue to fine-tune it in year 2 and year 3.
Okay. And my last question, in regards to what I was discussing with Mr. O'Brien, is that something that you can take care of as superintendent and speak to?
Sure,
both
sure.
you and Ms. Nelson, and try to get some type of program?
Absolutely, absolutely, right. Yep.
Does anybody else have any questions for either principal or for Dr. Malvey? If not, what I would ask you to do is make note of all the issues that individual members brought up. Write down any motions that you want to make and changes that you would like to see in regards to the budget. And for these two schools, that will be done at our last meeting on Wednesday after we do the district and the SPED. Tomorrow night, we'll be meeting here, same place, same station, 6 o'clock, and it will be the elementary principals, Lake Street and Dwyer Village. In East Brookfield, yep. Do you have anything, Dr. Malvey?
I'd just like to make 2 points of clarification from what both Bob and Joyce said, and then some of the questions that were raised. But with respect to AP, AP is a generic term for the secondary level for high school programs, and it stands for advanced placement courses, which are very, very tightly controlled on the national level. There are standards built in, training of staff members in a high school before you can even consider offering an AP course. But you also had asked Joyce a similar question with respect to the middle school, and we don't have, the junior high level, we don't have the same type of AP course, if you will, at junior high and/or middle school level, because it's a secondary based at the high school level. But that doesn't preclude a school district's ability to have an accelerated program, and maybe that's a little more in tune with what we may be doing. And then over and above that, certainly differentiated instruction at the classroom level for, if you have a group of 20, 25 students, 5 of them may be off the charts. The majority of them, if you look at a normal curve, would be in probably the middle range where they should be at grade level, and then another handful of youngsters on the lower end of the normal curve that may need some additional help. So I don't want people to walk out of here tonight thinking that we either have or we should have AP courses at the junior high level. It's, I won't say that it's not appropriate, but it's very, very different when you get to the high school level. The second piece was, and I lost my train of thought, the second piece was on the AP and, oh, goodness. Well, I'll think of it 2 in the morning, and I'll go on one call and let everyone know. It'll come to me, but it's another similar fine-tuning of the distinction between how a junior high operates versus the high school.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Melby. If there's no other questions, then the chair would entertain a motion to...
I had one just comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is the 5th round of budget reviews that I've been a part of, and this one's definitely been different than the first 4. I almost got the impression that, like, you guys got, the bug in your ear that it has to come at level services, and I understand that. But I also see that there's a financial side that we all have to worry about, and there's an educational side. I just feel that, level services kind of equals level performance. And I think that if we keep going down that road, we're never going to get out of this as well. So I know something you said, Kevin, was, a debt exclusion, and I don't think any of us are against that, but I think in the past they've been open blanket ones with no tangible goal set to them, and it just got kind of sucked back into salary. So I think you guys did a great job, and I'm certainly not, complaining about that, but, man, to me, the principals are the lifeblood of this place, and, in years past, and right, wrong, or indifferent, I mean, you used to come with a maximum wish list, a moderate wish list, and then the bare bones. And today you just kind of let off with the bare bones. And it could be from decades of presenting it and not getting anything. I understand that. But I would still hope that moving forward we would get more of that stuff that will help us move the needle. Because to me, I mean, I get we're in a financial crisis, but, man, our jobs are still, educating the kids. So, I mean, I really think even though we might not get everything, we need to be able to put this stuff on a list, a capital improvement list, a long-term goal list, so these things don't fall off the table one year, get picked up a couple years down the road. I mean, I think even if we don't get it all this year, we have to put it on, some type of spreadsheet or board or something to not keep our eyes, drifting off of it, because we always get sucked into different things, and education seems to, take the brunt of it. So, I commend you on your job. You did a great job. It's a bare bones budget. I get it, but if there's anything else you guys would like to come back, this week and just say, hey, I forgot something else, because to me it looks like combining both of you guys, it's still under $50,000 of wishes, and $31,000 of that is wrapped up into clerical help and sporting equipment. And I mean, I just don't see that moving a DSAC report an inch. So, thank you for doing what you did, and thank you for being fiscally responsible, but don't take your eye off the, the real goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
If I may, you must have been reading my thoughts, Chris, because that was the point I was going to try to get to, that I probably have had a greater influence on determining where this budget would go. And it pains me as an educator for the number of years I've been involved in education to have it so, what I call lean. And that specifically is because we are not in a financial position to do the kinds of things that you say. It doesn't mean that we sweep it under the rug, but I kind of came down pretty directly with my colleagues and said, we can have the things that we truly need, but it's really going to be driven with what's in our wallet, if you will. And even my conversations with the DSAC people and with our financial advisor and the commissioners people, too. Until we can get ourselves out of this financial apocalypse and get us to the point that we start to have somewhat of a cash flow, and that doesn't mean money's going to fall out of the sky. It doesn't mean that the towns are just going to write us the check. But I think by the very tight controls we put in this year, I'm optimistic that we may end up in that fourth quarter. We may end up with a little bit of reserve. I can't guarantee it because I've got another month to go in the third quarter. But the point I'm getting at is that until we can right our financial ship, I could not, in good conscience, come forward and say, gee, folks, we need A, B, C, D, yada, 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 all the way down the alphabet, but I don't know how to pay for it. And I don't think anyone on the town side wants to see us come back, with a bill that we can't cooperatively fund by putting our heads together. So I will take the blame for that to try to get us to one more budget that's going to be lean, but hopefully will, as I say, right this financial ship. And to Bob and Joyce's points, we are doing things despite not having the financial resources. We're not going to use it as an excuse. It is a reason why we can't go forward as quickly as we would like, but we're not going to stop the work, ergo what has been happening on the district curriculum committee and the building leadership teams. The high school is well into data and analysis of data. One of the comments that was made about DDM's district-determined measures, that looks at districts of how you evaluate your students and whether you're making progress, and it's all data-driven. So even if I don't have an influx of money for new materials or staffing, appropriate staff, whether I have additional guidance support or additional work with students through the conflict mediation, we're going to continue to plug away. But I honestly think we're probably a year, if not two, before we start to see a recovery of this financial operation. And I'll certainly be reading about it in the papers in 2 or 3 years that you are starting to make those improvements. But to your point, that's what I was thinking of, that I really have to put that as a qualifier, that it is not that we did not look at it, talk about it, discuss it, but in the end, I think we had to be reasonable and say, this is all we have in the piggy bank right now, and we'll go with this, and hopefully people will support it so that we can get a few more steps in the process going into the second year of this and then building the third-year budget. So that's what I was thinking of.
To Dr. Malby's point, coming off what we just went through back several months ago, and having been defeated at our attempts to try to get more money into the district, the superintendent really had no choice but to go to the direction that he went. Having said that, even the budget that we're looking at is coming close to $650,000, $700,000 more than what we had last year. And as of right now, my conversations with town fathers, they're looking to give us $245,000 and not a penny more. So we're trying to operate on a level service budget, and I know we're already going to be confronted with having to cut some $400,000 to $500,000 out unless we can find another solution or there's a change of heart with other folks. But so I hear everything that Chris has said as well, and I'm on board with that. But I think, unfortunately, we're probably, as Dr. Malby said, still maybe a year away from being able to do what we really want to do. But, anyone else have any comments? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Vinnie, seconded by Kurt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so voted.